Asterisk asterisk you don't belong in this room. Asterisk asterisk Victoria Langford didn't whisper it. She wanted the room to hear. Her voice cut through the golden ballroom like a blade dragged across glass. Conversations thinned. Crystal flutes paused halfway to painted lips. A violinist near the terrace missed half a note, then recovered too late. And there, beneath the chandeliers of the Langford Grand, stood Darius Cole. Black suit. No visible brand. No watch loud enough to beg for respect. No entourage. No diamond cufflinks. Just stillness. The kind of stillness people mistake for weakness when they have never seen power without noise. Victoria's eyes traveled from his polished shoes to his collar, then to his face, and something cold settled behind her smile. "This gala is private," she said. "Sponsors, board members, legacy families. Not, whoever you are." A few guests looked away. That was always the first confession. Not the insult. The silence around it. Darius didn't move. He held a glass of water in one hand, untouched. His other hand rested at his side, relaxed, almost patient. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here." Now, back to Darius. The Langford Legacy Gala was supposed to be the most important night in the family's history. A $2 billion merger. A private equity rescue package. A room full of senators, CEOs, developers, bankers, and heirs pretending their fortunes were built only on talent. At the center of it all stood Victoria Langford, daughter of Richard Langford, the man who had inherited a real estate empire and nearly burned it to the ground with arrogance disguised as vision. Tonight was supposed to save them. But the final signature had not yet been placed. And no one in that room knew the man they were humiliating was the only reason the deal existed at all. Darius Cole had arrived alone on purpose. No press. No assistant. No custom lapel pin. He had learned long ago that when you entered rooms dressed simply, people showed you the truth before they showed you their manners. At 23, a receptionist had told him deliveries went through the back. At 26, a bank officer had asked if he had proof that his cashier's check was real. At 31, a hotel manager had stopped him outside a penthouse elevator and said, "Staff floors are downstairs." Every time, Darius had remembered. Not because the words broke him. Because they sharpened him. Victoria stepped closer, smiling now because she thought the room belonged to her. "You're standing near the investor table," she said. "That's not for guests like you." Darius looked past her to the long table beneath the white orchids. Black folders. Gold pens. The Langford crest printed in raised ink. $2 billion waiting in silence. Then he looked back at her. "And what kind of guest am I?" he asked. The question was quiet. Too quiet. Victoria laughed, but it came out thin. The kind who walks in hoping nobody checks the list. A man near the bar chuckled. Not because it was funny. Because he wanted to be near power, and power had just laughed. Darius turned his head slightly toward him. The man stopped. Victoria noticed, and irritation flashed across her face. "Security is at the east entrance," she said. "I can make this very simple." "You already have," Darius said. Her smile vanished for half a second. "Excuse me. You've made yourself very clear." The words landed softly, but the room felt them. Victoria leaned in just enough for cruelty to feel intimate. "You people always do this," she said. "You confuse access with belonging." There it was. Not hidden now. Not polished. The sentence struck the floor and split the air open. A woman in emerald silk lowered her eyes. A junior associate by the contract table froze. One waiter stopped walking, tray balanced in one trembling hand. Darius didn't blink. Victoria should have stopped there. But entitlement is a staircase. Once people start climbing, they think every step is theirs. She lifted her red wine and looked him over again. "Look at you," she said, louder now. "No sponsor badge. No family name. No one greeting you. You really thought a plain suit and a straight face could fool everyone." Darius placed his untouched water on a nearby table. Slowly. Deliberately. The smallest action in the room became the loudest. "Victoria," a man behind her murmured, nervous. She ignored him. "No," she said. "I'm tired of this. My father built this evening for serious people. People who earned their seat." Darius looked at the Langford crest behind her. Then at her. "Did you?" The ballroom went still. Her face hardened. That one question had reached somewhere money could not defend. Victoria's hand moved before her judgment caught up. The red wine left the glass in a controlled arc. It struck Darius across the chest. Dark fabric swallowed the stain, but not the meaning. Gasps broke out across the room. The waiter's tray rattled. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Victoria lowered the empty glass, breathing fast now, but still trying to look victorious. "There," she said. "Now you look exactly like what you are." Darius looked down. 1 second. 2. The wine spread slowly, like a wound opening across his jacket. Then he looked up. No rage. No humiliation. Only certainty. And that terrified the people who knew how power was supposed to react. Because Darius Cole did not reach for a napkin. He reached for his phone. Victoria laughed once, but the sound had lost its spine. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Call someone." Darius unlocked the screen. Typed 5 words. Sent them. Then slipped the phone back into his pocket. Across the ballroom, 3 phones buzzed at the investor table. One legal advisor looked down first. His face changed. Not dramatically. Worse. Professionally. The kind of fear that understands numbers before emotions. He leaned toward another attorney. She read the message, then went pale. Victoria saw the movement. Her eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Darius finally stepped closer. "Just one step. I gave you enough room," he said, "to become honest." The security team arrived before Victoria could answer. 2 men in black suits moved through the crowd, hands near their radios. Behind them came Martin Keller, head of Langford Private Security, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, and trained to obey wealth before truth. Victoria turned to him with relief. "Remove him," she said. "He's trespassing." Keller looked at Darius without recognition and immediately made the same mistake. "Sir," he said, voice flat. "You need to come with us." Darius did not move. Keller stepped closer. "Now." "You have not asked my name," Darius said. Keller's mouth tightened. "I don't need your name to escort you out." A murmur moved through the room. Darius nodded once, almost sadly. "That's the problem." Victoria folded her arms. "Stop performing." Keller reached for Darius's arm. He never got there. "Martin." The voice came from the contract table. Richard Langford had finally turned. 68 years old. Silver hair. Tailored tuxedo. A man used to owning the silence after he spoke. But he was not looking at Darius with authority. He was looking at his phone. Then at the legal team. Then back at Darius. His face carried the expression of a man watching a bridge collapse while standing on it. "Do not touch him," Richard said. Keller froze. Victoria spun toward her father. "What?" Richard walked forward slowly, phone clutched in one hand. The room parted for him, as it always had. But tonight, that parting felt different. Less like respect. More like fear moving out of the way. His legal advisor followed close behind, whispering urgently. Sir, Cole Capital has issued immediate withdrawal notice. All bridge financing. All acquisition support. All capital commitments. Termination effective now. The words did not need volume. They detonated anyway. What? Victoria said again. This time softer. Richard kept walking until he stood a few feet from Darius. His eyes dropped to the wine stain. Then lifted. Mr. Cole, he said. The entire ballroom heard it. Mr. Cole. The name traveled faster than sound. Guests turned to one another. Phones came out. A banker near the orchid table whispered, Cole? As in Cole Capital. Another guest answered, Darius Cole. Victoria's face changed. Just slightly at first. Confusion. Then calculation. Then fear. Darius said nothing. Richard swallowed. I believe, he said, there has been a terrible misunderstanding. Darius looked at Victoria. No, he said. There has been a very clear understanding. The room breathed in. And did not breathe out. Richard lowered his voice. Darius, please. This deal is critical. Let's step somewhere private. Darius's expression did not shift. You were comfortable when it was public. Richard flinched. Victoria tried to recover, stepping between them with a brittle laugh. Daddy, he never introduced himself. He was standing there without credentials. Anyone would have. Darius turned his eyes to her. She stopped. Not because he raised his voice. Because he didn't. Anyone would have what? He asked. Victoria's lips parted. Darius waited. The room waited with him. Say it, he said. She looked around. The same guests who had ignored the insult now watched her like witnesses in court. I was protecting the event, she said. No, Darius replied. You were protecting an image. And I didn't fit it. Richard's legal advisor spoke again, voice tight. Mr. Langford, the co-investors are asking whether Cole Capital's withdrawal triggers the morality clause and reputational risk provisions. If they follow, the entire structure collapses. Richard stared at him. It already has, Darius said. Victoria's hand trembled around the empty wine glass. You can't just destroy a $2 billion deal because of one conversation. Darius looked at the stain on his jacket. One conversation, he repeated. He turned to the room now. Not performing. Testifying. She told me I didn't belong. She said people like me confuse access with belonging. She had security called before asking my name. Then she threw wine on me in front of everyone here. Silence. He looked back at Victoria. That was not one conversation. That was a culture speaking through one person. A black woman near the rear of the room closed her eyes. A young server stared at the floor, jaw tight. A Latino contractor by the terrace whispered, finally. Richard took a step closer, desperation polished into diplomacy. Mr. Cole, I will personally apologize. Victoria will apologize. We'll issue a statement. We can increase your equity position. Darius almost smiled. Almost. You think this is a price dispute? Richard's face tightened. You're a businessman. Yes, Darius said. That is why I know. When an asset is poisoned. Victoria inhaled sharply. Richard's nostrils flared. Be careful. The room changed again. A warning from Richard Langford still carried old force. But Darius had not built his life by fearing old force. He stepped closer, the wine stain between them like evidence. No, he said. You be careful. You invited me here because your banks refused to extend. Your shareholders lost faith. Your debt matures in 11 days. Your overseas partners backed away after the zoning investigations. Cole Capital didn't need this deal. Langford did. Richard's face drained. The guests understood then. Not all the details. Enough. The man Victoria had humiliated was not a stranger near the investor table. He was the table. Darius turned toward the legal advisor. Confirm receipt. The advisor looked helplessly at Richard, then checked his phone again. Confirmed, he said. Cole Capital has withdrawn. Funds frozen. Follow-on commitment suspended. Advisory support terminated. A woman gasped. Someone near the back whispered, "They're finished." Victoria shook her head. No. No, this is ridiculous. We can fix this. Darius looked at her with something colder than anger. You still think the damage is financial? He paused. The damage is that you showed every person in this room who you are when you believed there would be no consequence. Victoria's eyes shone now, not with remorse, but with panic. I didn't know who you were. Darius nodded. There it is. The sentence fell heavy. He looked at the crowd. That is the whole confession. He turned back to her. You didn't know who I was, so you decided I was nobody. No one moved. The violinists had stopped playing completely. The ballroom, built for influence, had become a courtroom without a judge. Then a voice from the side cut through. She did the same thing to me. Everyone turned. The speaker was Naomi Brooks, a black executive assistant from the Langford Development Office. She stood near the service corridor, hands clasped in front of her, eyes wet but steady. Victoria looked stunned. Naomi, this is not the time. Naomi laughed once. Small. Broken. It never is. Darius turned toward her. Naomi stepped forward, trembling but no longer retreating. Last month, I brought investor packets into a board lunch. Ms. Langford asked why catering was in the boardroom. When I told her I worked for Langford Development, she said, then dress like it. Victoria's face flushed. That is taken out of context. Naomi kept going. 2 weeks before that, she told Mr. Alvarez from zoning that valet staff waited outside. He was the deputy commissioner. A murmur rose. Naomi's voice grew stronger. And tonight she told the floor captain to watch unknown urban guests because the donors were nervous. The room erupted in whispers. Victoria snapped, that is a lie. It's not. A second voice. The floor captain, a young white man named Evan, stood near the ballroom doors, face pale. She said it, he admitted. She told us anyone who looked out of place should be redirected to the service entrance. Victoria turned on him. You signed an NDA. Evan shook his head. I didn't sign up to enforce racism. The word finally entered the room naked. Racism. No polite substitute. No misunderstanding. No tone. No bad optics. The thing itself. Richard whispered, Victoria, she looked around wildly. Now the room was no longer protecting her. It was studying her. Darius glanced toward Naomi. Thank you. Naomi nodded, tears falling now. I'm sorry we didn't speak sooner. Darius's voice softened. You spoke when it mattered. Victoria was unraveling. This is insane. All of you are acting like I attacked him. Darius looked down at his stained jacket. Then back at her. You did. Richard turned to his daughter. Apologize. Victoria stared at him. What? Apologize now. She swallowed, looking from her father to Darius to the cameras rising around the room. I'm sorry, she said. Darius waited. Her jaw tightened. I'm sorry if you felt disrespected. A low groan moved through the ballroom. Darius nodded slowly. Even your apology is looking for an escape route. Victoria's eyes hardened again. You want me to beg? No, Darius said. I want you to understand. But that may be beyond tonight. Richard stepped in again, voice pleading beneath the Polish. Darius, tell me what you want. Darius held his gaze. For tonight? Yes. Anything. Darius looked around the ballroom. At the waiters. At Naomi. At Evan. At the investors calculating distance. At Victoria, still holding herself like consequences were an insult. Then he said, the truth. Richard blinked. Darius continued. In front of everyone. Not in a statement. Not through counsel. Not tomorrow. You will tell this room why Cole Capital was here. You will tell them what your company needed from mine. You will tell them why this deal is did. Richard looked as if he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Victoria whispered, don't. Darius didn't look at her. This is your last chance to leave with a fraction of dignity. Richard's mouth opened. Closed. Then, slowly, he turned to face the room. Every phone lifted. Every conversation died. My company, Richard began, voice rough, entered tonight dependent on a financing and acquisition structure led by Cole Capital. Mr. Darius Cole was not merely a guest. He was the principal capital partner. A wave of shock moved across the guests. Richard continued, each word costing him. My daughter's actions tonight were unacceptable. Racist. Disgraceful. They violated the values we claim to represent. Victoria whispered, Dad, he did not stop. And because of those actions, Cole Capital has withdrawn from the deal. Effective immediately. There it was. The empire bleeding in public. No spin. No shield. Darius watched without satisfaction. Justice did not always feel like joy. Sometimes it felt like a locked door finally opening after years of being told the hallway was not meant for you. Then Richard turned back. Please, he said quietly. Don't make this permanent. Darius studied him. At 24, he said, I stood outside a gala like this with an invitation in my hand. A man at the door looked at my name and asked if I was part of the entertainment crew. I told him I was there to meet a sponsor. He laughed. The room was silent. I waited outside in the cold for 40 minutes before the sponsor found me. By then, the meeting was gone. The opportunity was gone. His eyes shifted to Victoria. That night taught me something. Rooms don't reject you because you lack value. They reject you because your value threatens their story. Victoria looked away. Darius continued. So I built my own rooms. Bigger ones. Stronger ones. Rooms where nobody had to shrink themselves to be seen. He looked back at Richard. And tonight, I walked into yours to decide whether your company deserved to survive. Richard's face collapsed into understanding. And? Darius looked at the wine stain. It answered for itself. The first investor stood. A woman from Harrington Trust closed her folder. My firm is suspending review, she said. Then another. Same. A third. We cannot proceed under these circumstances. The sound of closing folders spread across the ballroom. One by one. Soft. Final. Like dirt falling onto a coffin. Victoria watched the room abandon her in real time. All her life, people had moved toward her name. Tonight, they moved away from it. Wait, she said. Everyone is overreacting. Naomi's voice cut through again. No. Everyone is finally reacting. A few people clapped. Then more. Not loud at first. Not theatrical. But growing. A sound made not of celebration, but release. Victoria backed away as if applause could bruise. Richard turned to Darius one last time. What happens now? Darius took out his phone again. Now, he said. Now accountability becomes operational. He tapped the screen. Across the room, Langford executives began receiving emails. Phones buzzed. Then more. Then dozens. Richard's legal advisor read his screen aloud, stunned. Cole Capital has triggered the ethics contingency clause. Independent review initiated. Pending partners notified. Public disclosure prepared. Victoria stared. You already had that ready. Darius looked at her. I prepare for patterns. That sentence froze her. Because it meant this was not revenge improvised in anger. This was consequence waiting for truth. Darius turned to Naomi. Ms. Brooks, are you still employed here? She hesitated. Yes. Do you want to be? Her eyes widened. I don't know. Darius nodded. Fair answer. He looked to Richard. Effective tomorrow morning, Cole Capital will fund an independent employee protection hotline for every Langford staff member willing to testify about discrimination, retaliation, or abuse. Their legal costs will be covered. Their jobs will be protected if the company survives long enough to deserve them. Richard opened his mouth, but Darius raised a hand. This is not a negotiation. The room shifted again. Not merely punishment now. Repair. Victoria laughed bitterly. So you get to play savior? Darius turned slowly. No. I get to use power for something other than decoration. A young black waiter near the terrace whispered, Amen. Darius heard him. The smallest smile touched his face. Then Keller, the security chief, stepped forward, ashamed now. Mr. Cole, he said. I owe you an apology. Darius looked at him. For what? Keller swallowed. For assuming. Darius held his gaze. That apology belongs to more than me. Keller turned toward the service staff. His shoulders dropped. You're right. Victoria looked disgusted. Oh, this is theater. Darius's eyes sharpened. No, Victoria. Theater is what this gala was. Justice is what interrupted it. The line landed like thunder. And this time, the applause was loud. Richard lowered his head. For the first time all night, the Langford name did not command the room. It survived inside it. Barely. Darius began walking toward the exit. Every step echoed on marble. Victoria's voice followed him. You're really going to walk away? He stopped but did not turn. She sounded smaller now. Not humble. Just stripped. You're going to ruin hundreds of employees because of me. Now he turned. Slowly. No, he said. You endangered them when you made cruelty part of the company culture. I'm giving them a chance to tell the truth before your family buries it. Richard flinched because he knew. Victoria went silent. Darius looked around the ballroom one last time. I want everyone here to remember something, he said. A person's dignity is not activated by their title. You don't become worthy when someone discovers your net worth. You were worthy before the room knew your name. No one spoke. Even the cameras seemed still. Then Darius turned and walked out. But the story did not end at the ballroom doors. Because consequences rarely stay in the room where they begin. Outside, the cold night air met him like mercy. The city stretched beyond the hotel, glass towers glowing against a dark sky. Behind him, the Langford Grand still shone gold, still beautiful, still pretending stone could hide what had happened inside. A black car waited at the curb. His driver opened the rear door. Darius paused. For the first time all night, he touched the wine stain. His fingers came away damp. He looked at them and remembered his mother at a kitchen table in Southside Chicago, sewing a torn blazer by lamplight because he had a scholarship interview the next morning. Walking clean, she had told him. But if they dirty you, don't you dare believe the stain belongs to you. He had not thought of that sentence in years. Tonight, it returned whole. His phone buzzed. Marcus Hale, his chief operating officer. Then Amora Dean, general counsel. Then the board channel. He opened one message. *** withdrawal confirmed. Partners following. Media inquiries beginning. Awaiting next directive. ***. Darius type back, ***, no victory laps. Protect employees. Preserve evidence. Center the harm. ***. He locked the phone. Behind him, the doors opened. Naomi Brooks stepped outside, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. Mr. Cole. Darius turned. She walked toward him carefully, as if approaching power still felt dangerous. I just wanted to say thank you. He shook his head. You told the truth. That was the hard part. She looked down. I should have said something months ago. You survived the way you knew how. Her eyes filled again. That doesn't feel like enough. It rarely does, he said. But it got you to tonight. She nodded slowly. Are they really going to listen now? Darius looked back at the hotel. They'll listen because silence just became expensive. Naomi let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Then she said, what about Victoria? Darius's face settled. She will learn that inheritance can open doors, but it cannot keep them open. Inside the ballroom, Victoria Langford was learning exactly that. Her father stood near the investor table, surrounded by legal counsel. Sponsors, and executives who no longer smiled when he spoke. Her phone rang non-stop. Board members. Public relations. Donors. Her fiancé. She ignored them all until one message appeared from the Langford Foundation chair. ***, effective immediately, Victoria Langford is removed from all public-facing leadership pending investigation. ***, her hand shook. She looked up. People were watching her now. Not admiring. Assessing. The way she had assessed Darius. And she hated it. Richard approached her slowly. You need to leave. Victoria stared at him. You're choosing him over me. Richard's eyes hardened with grief and fury. I'm choosing what's left of the company. Her mouth fell open. You let him humiliate me. No, Richard said. You humiliated yourself. He let us all see it. That struck deeper than any shout. Victoria looked toward the exit, where Darius had disappeared. For the first time, she understood that he had not taken her power. He had revealed that much of it had only been borrowed from silence. Across the ballroom, Naomi was already speaking with two other employees. Evan stood beside them. Then a chef. Then a valet supervisor. Then one of Langford's junior analysts. Stories began to gather. Quiet ones. Old ones. The kind companies bury in HR folders and call resolved. But tonight, the folders had opened. And the room had witnesses. By midnight, the gala footage had leaked. Not the edited statement. Not the polished apology. The moment. Victoria saying, you people. The wine hitting Darius's jacket. Richard calling him Mr. Cole. Darius saying, you didn't know who I was, so you decided I was nobody. By 1 a.m., 3 investment partners had withdrawn. By 2:30, Langford Development stock began collapsing in overseas pre-market indicators. By sunrise, every major business outlet had one question, ***, who was Darius Cole, and why did one insult cost Langford billions, ***, but Darius did not give interviews that morning. He went to his mother's house. She lived in a quiet brick home with blue shutters and roses that refused to die even in hard weather. When she opened the door and saw the stain on his jacket, her face changed before he said a word. Who did that? Darius smiled faintly. Someone who mistook patience for permission. She stepped aside. Come in. In the kitchen, she made coffee without asking. Darius sat at the same table where she had once sewn his interview blazer. For a while, neither spoke. Then she touched the stained jacket hanging over the chair. "You remember what I told you?" He looked up. Every word. Her eyes softened. "Good." He exhaled. "I ended their deal. I figured. They'll say I overreacted. Of course they will. They'll say I made it about race." She poured coffee into his cup. "No. They made it about race when they decided your face didn't match your power." Darius looked at her. The sentence settled into him. His mother sat across from him. "You tired?" He nodded once. "Very. Good," she said. "Means you carried something heavy." He laughed quietly. She did not. But don't carry what belongs to them. By noon, Cole Capital released a statement. It was short. No corporate fog. No apology for having standards. *** Cole Capital has withdrawn all support from Langford Development following conduct inconsistent with our ethical requirements. We are establishing an independent fund to support Langford employees affected by discriminatory workplace practices. Dignity is not a luxury condition. It is the minimum. The statement went viral. But the line people repeated most came from Darius himself. A clip from the gala. His voice calm. "You don't become worthy when someone discovers your net worth." Millions watched it. Some praised him. Some called him ruthless. Some asked why he did not simply forgive. But forgiveness had never meant removing consequences. And Darius knew the difference. 3 days later, Langford Development's emergency board meeting convened on the 42nd floor of its headquarters. This time, Darius did not arrive alone. He entered with Amora Dean, Naomi Brooks, and 6 employees prepared to testify. Victoria was not in the room. Richard was. He looked smaller in daylight. The board chair, Helen Marsh, stood when Darius entered. "Mr. Cole." Darius nodded. "Ms. Marsh." She glanced at Naomi. "And Ms. Brooks." Naomi blinked, surprised to be named. Darius noticed. So did everyone else. The meeting lasted for hours. No shouting. No theatrics. Just evidence. Emails. Dismissed complaints. Security instructions. Internal messages referring to image risks, urban optics, and donor comfort. Every phrase another brick removed from Langford's polished wall. At one point, Richard covered his face. At another, Helen Marsh said, "How did this go unreported?" Naomi answered, "It was reported. You didn't read it." No one spoke after that. By the end of the meeting, Victoria Langford had been permanently removed from all leadership roles. Richard Langford stepped down as CEO. An independent compliance monitor was installed. A restitution fund was created for affected employees and guests. And Naomi Brooks was offered a role in the oversight office. She looked at Darius when they told her. He gave the smallest nod. Not permission. Recognition. 2 weeks later, Darius returned to the Langford Grand. Not for a gala. For a meeting with employees. The ballroom looked different in daylight. Less magical. More honest. The chandeliers still hung above, but without evening gowns and champagne, the space felt almost bare. Rows of chairs replaced the investor tables. Staff filled them. Servers. Analysts. Assistants. Security. Housekeeping. Reception. People who had kept the empire alive while others took bows. Darius stood at the front. No stage. No podium. Just a microphone in his hand. "I'm not here to give a victory speech," he began. What happened in this room was not new. It was simply visible. The room was quiet. Some of you spoke. Some of you froze. Some of you stayed silent because silence helped you survive. I understand that. But starting today, survival cannot be the company policy. A few heads lifted. Naomi sat in the front row. Evan beside her. Darius continued. Every person in this room deserves a workplace where dignity is not dependent on who is watching. That requires systems. It requires protection. It requires consequences. He paused. And it requires courage before cameras appear. That line landed gently but deeply. A housekeeper raised her hand. Darius nodded. She stood. My name is Marisol. I worked here 11 years. Last year, a donor called me the help and snapped his fingers at me. My supervisor told me not to take it personally. Darius looked at her. I'm sorry that happened. She swallowed. That's the first time anyone here said that. The room broke a little. Not loudly. Quietly. In faces. In lowered eyes. In hands gripping knees. Another employee stood. Then another. Stories came forward like water through cracked stone. And Darius stayed. He did not check his phone. He did not delegate empathy. He listened. Because power that only appears for punishment is not leadership. Power must also remain for repair. 1 month later, the Langford name changed. Not the buildings. Not yet. But the foundation. The gala program. The leadership structure. Victoria's portrait was removed from the donor hall. In its place, a new inscription was carved into black stone near the ballroom entrance. Asterisk asterisk dignity enters before status. Asterisk asterisk below it, smaller, asterisk asterisk in recognition of the employees whose truth changed this institution. Asterisk asterisk Naomi cried when she saw it. Darius did not. But he stood there longer than he planned. The wine-stained jacket had been cleaned, but not restored. A faint shadow remained across the chest if you knew where to look. His assistant had offered to replace it. Darius refused. He had it framed in his private office. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. Months later, Victoria Langford appeared in an interview. Soft lighting. Controlled setting. Carefully chosen words. She said she had been raised in a bubble. She said she was doing the work. She said she deeply regretted the interaction. The public response was mixed. Some believed her. Some did not. Darius never commented. When asked directly, he said only, growth is proven in private before it is trusted in public. That became another headline. But the moment that mattered most happened far from cameras. 6 months after the gala, Naomi Brooks walked into a boardroom at Langford's headquarters. Not carrying coffee. Not delivering packets. She sat at the table. Her nameplate read, asterisk asterisk Naomi Brooks, Director of Ethics and Employee Protection asterisk asterisk across from her sat senior executives who once would have looked through her. Now they waited for her to speak. She opened a folder. Before we begin, she said, we're reviewing 3 unresolved complaints from last quarter. No one interrupted. No one dismissed. No one asked if she belonged. And somewhere across the city, in the top floor office of Coal Capital, Darius stood before the framed jacket. The stain was faint under glass. Almost gone. But not erased. Amora entered behind him. Langford review came in, she said. Employee trust scores are up. Complaint resolution is actually functioning. Naomi's team is doing good work. Darius nodded. Good. And Victoria? He turned. Still asking for a meeting. Darius looked back at the jacket. Not yet. Amora studied him. You think she'll change? I think consequences gave her the first honest mirror she's ever had. And is that enough? Darius was quiet for a moment. No, he said. But it's a beginning. That evening, Darius attended another event. Different hotel. Different city. Same gold lighting. Same polished floors. Same kind of room where wealth pretended it had no memory. He arrived in a simple black suit. No visible brand. No entourage. At the entrance, a young black security guard checked the list. He looked up, recognized him, and straightened. "Mr. Cole," he said. "Welcome." Darius paused. Not because of the recognition. Because of the respect in the man's voice. Respect without fear. Without performance. "Thank you," Darius said. The guard hesitated. "My little brother saw your speech," he said quietly. "The one about worth. He's applying for internships now. Said he doesn't want to shrink himself anymore." Darius looked at him for a long second. "That's good," he said. "Tell him rooms are not gifts. They're built. And sometimes they're taken back." The guard smiled. "Yes, sir." Darius entered the ballroom. People turned. This time, they knew his name. But he knew something more important. He had been worthy before they learned it. And for every person still standing outside a door, holding an invitation someone refused to read, that truth mattered. Power did not need to shout. Justice did not need to beg. And dignity did not wait for permission. That night at the Langford Gala, they thought they were watching a man get humiliated. They were wrong. They were watching a system expose itself. They were watching silence change sides. They were watching a black CEO stand still long enough for prejudice to speak clearly, then calmly remove the flaw beneath it. And when the room finally understood who Darius Cole was, it was already too late. Because the real lesson was never that he owned the deal. It was that he owned himself. And no room, no family name, no glass of wine, no security hand, no inherited empire could take that away.